What's up, guys? Back with some more Saints content. Today's video, I'm going to be counting down my top 5 Saints players to look out for during this preseason coming up in just a few short days. We'll be playing the Houston Texans on the road Saturday night. So if you guys are excited for preseason, you don't want to miss any of the content coming out and have preseason game recaps and stuff like that coming out. That's just the preseason. Y'all don't want to miss the regular season stuff either, because that's going to be even better than the preseason stuff. So if you want to miss that, make sure you subscribe for more. And let me know that you guys are into the videos and that you guys want to keep seeing more. I might still be doing training camp updates too during the preseason. I'm not sure how that's going to go. Saints are going to be having some joint practices coming up with Green Bay leading up to the Green Bay game. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. Now, one more thing before we get into my top 5 players to watch for this preseason. Most of this list is going to be either rookies or second-year players because of the fact that we haven't seen much of them on the football field. I could totally just name off guys like, that have been in the league for a while and that we know who they are. But most of these players are going to be rookies or second-year guys because of the fact that we don't exactly know who they are yet on the football field in the pros. So that's why, as you guys, as we get more into the list, you guys are going to see that this is mostly rookies and or second-year players. So that's pretty much how the list is going to go. This is my list. If I leave anyone off this list, let me know. And, yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. Number 5 on my list for the top 5 Saints players to look out for this preseason is going to be undrafted free agent rookie running back Abram Smith. This might be kind of an odd pick for some of you guys, but I do think the running back 3 role in the Saints offense is very uncertain. Obviously we have Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram, but the running back 3 situation is really interesting, especially it was earlier in the offseason before Alvin Kamara's court hearing got pushed back a little bit because everyone expected Kamara to be suspended for the first 6 games of the season at least, or if not suspended the first 6 games at some point during the season. Now, obviously, his hearing has been pushed back, and the earliest he could have a legal situation happen is like October because of the fact that his court hearing got pushed back to the end of September. So he's guaranteed not going to be suspended for the first 3 weeks of the season. But if it continues to be pushed back, as it has already 3 or 4 times now, then Alvin Kamara could actually play the entire 2022 season or just not get suspended till middle of the season or not even until next season, which would actually be favorable for us. Now, if something does happen to Alvin Kamara, whether it be injury or suspension, obviously you have Mark Ingram at the number 2 spot, but who's going to be your number 3 guy? Because you don't want to just have Mark Ingram having all the carries, especially at his age. Now, yes, I know he probably has plenty left in the tank, but you don't want to give Mark Ingram 30 carries. You just don't. So who are you going to have in the number 3 spot? Are you going to have Tony Jones, who the Saints actually liked at the number 2 spot last year before they traded for Mark Ingram? And Tony Jones also had a really good preseason last year. Or are they going to stick with the guy like Abram Smith, who's been showing out at training camp this year and is really competing for that number 3 spot? That's going to be really interesting to see. The reason why I didn't put Tony Jones Jr. right here was because we kind of know who he is. We've seen him get some regular season action. We saw him a lot last preseason, and we really saw him actually at that number 2 running back spot for a brief period of time before he got hurt, and then a few weeks later the Saints would end up trading for Mark Ingram back from the Houston Texans. But I do think Abram Smith's going to get a lot of playing time this preseason. Or I don't know about a lot, because I think, most of those second half snaps are going to go to like way at the bottom of the depth chart. But I do think, especially like in the first half against the Houston Texans this week, I'm sure you guys will see a lot of Abram Smith. So I would keep an eye out for that. So that's my number 5 player on the list. Coming in at number 4, I have second-year defensive end Peyton Turner, who the Saints selected in the first round of the 2021 draft. He showed out a little bit last year when he played. He only played about half the season. The first game that he was active for was Week 2 against the Carolina Panthers, which the Saints lost that game 26-7. And one of the only bright spots of that game was actually Peyton Turner, who had a sack and a couple nice plays on defense. Now, the reason why I'm putting him so high on the list was because, like I said, we didn't see who he really was last year. He had very limited snaps, and he looked solid. He had some solid moments, but the only game he really stood out was that Week 2 game. And then he got hurt about midway through the season. We didn't see him the rest of that year, but he's been really standing out during this training camp. And I'm not sure how much action he'll see because, like I said, he's a first-round pick, and he's just coming back from that injury. I know he's fully cleared and everything like that, but I think the Saints are going to want to give some of those preseason snaps more so towards bottom of the depth chart players, and I don't think Peyton Turner is going to be at the bottom of the depth chart. He's probably going to be looking at that second team under, Davenport and Cam Jordan and all that stuff. But I would keep an eye out for him this preseason. I'm sure he will get some action, like I said. And, yeah, there's not much else to say with Peyton Turner. I would keep an eye out for him this preseason. Now, coming into my number 3 spot on the list is going to be rookie tackle Trevor Penning, who the Saints used their second first-round selection on this year. I kind of talked about Trevor Penning a little bit in my previous training camp Week 2 recap video. If you guys want to go ahead and check that out, that's the previous video I uploaded on either Saturday or Sunday of last weekend, so go check that out if you haven't. But he's been having some, fighting problems at camp. Not so much the past week or so, but at one point in time, he was being really aggressive at camp. But besides that stuff, he's really competing with James Hurst for that number 1 spot in terms of left tackle. And I do think James Hurst is going to ultimately win that spot because of the fact that he's a veteran, he's a proven guy, you know who he is. He filled in a lot of time for Teron Armstead, who was always in and out of the lineup because Teron Armstead was very injury-prone during his time with the Saints. So I do think the Saints trust James Hurst, at least to start the season, to be that, the starter at the left tackle position. But I do think Trevor Penning's going to get a lot of action this preseason, especially at left tackle. Like I said, the reason why I didn't say James Hurst was because we know who James Hurst is. We've seen him get a lot of action for Teron Armstead. But Trevor Penning, we haven't seen him on the football field yet in the pros as a New Orleans Saint. So we'll see how he can do against the second-string pass rush of the Houston Texans. We'll see him get some action against the Green Bay Packers, I'm sure, and also against the LA Chargers, which is the third and final preseason game in the Caesar Superdome. But yeah, I would definitely keep an eye out for Trevor Penning. It's kind of hard to evaluate offensive linemen, obviously, when it comes to regular season action, because most of the time you're watching the quarterback, you're watching the defense, you're watching the the offense and the receivers and stuff like that. But during preseason, I really think, since winning doesn't really matter, obviously you want to win, but you use preseason to kind of evaluate players. So if you're watching these games, especially on television, I would really watch that offensive line and see how Trevor Penning does, because that could be really important, especially if something happens to James Hurst, or you never know. These are the kind of guys you want to evaluate. The Saints spent a first-round pick on Trevor Penning to kind of replace Teron Armstead and be that future left tackle. So I would definitely keep an eye out for him and see how that pans out heading into this season. Now, we're kind of flying by this list, so that's pretty good. Coming in at my number 2 spot is, this is either going to be not surprising to you guys or really surprising that I have him this high, but I have wide receiver Chris Olave coming at the number 2 spot, who the Saints used their first-round pick on in the 2022 draft, trade up for, which is one of my favorite moves of the offseason. Obviously, I can't really, one-up any of them between Tyrann Mathieu and Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry. Those are definitely the biggest moves of the offseason, and it leaves me really excited, and a lot of you guys excited. Chris Olave has been absolutely dominating in training camp, but the reason why I have him so high on the list is not because, I don't know how he's going to pan out in the pros or anything like that. I know for a fact Chris Olave is going to be a dominant number 2 receiver for the New Orleans Saints, a great deep threat, and he can really do it all. He's going to complement Michael Thomas really well and Jarvis Landry in the slot. But the reason why I have him so high is not necessarily just to evaluate him, because like I said, I think we know who he is, just because of the fact that everyone already says he's built for the pros. He's already looks NFL ready, even just in training camp. In mini camp, players were saying that. So that's kind of crazy. But like I said, the reason why I have him so high is because I'm just excited, and I know you guys are excited too. I don't think anyone is more excited. No one's excited to see one more player in preseason than Chris Olave. Obviously, I don't think Michael Thomas is going to play in the preseason. I don't think Jarvis Landry is going to play in the preseason because they're veterans and we know who they are. And Michael Thomas has been absolutely tearing it up in training camp. And I think that's, more than enough for, to evaluate Michael Thomas. He doesn't need preseason to be doing that stuff, at least not the first preseason game. I do think Chris Olave will get some action against the Houston Texans, and I think he'll play at least a little bit in every single preseason game this year because of the fact that he's a rookie. And regardless of what you do in training camp, you got to prove it in the preseason, you got to prove it in the regular season. I do think he will, but I'm really excited to see what he does as a rookie in the preseason leading up to the regular season. So keep an eye out for Chris Olave. He's going to be really great to see during this preseason, and I'm really excited, especially for this Saturday against the Houston Texans. Now, the number 1 player on my list for the top 5 Saints players to watch for during preseason shouldn't come as that much of a surprise, but to some of you guys in May, I'm going to explain myself in a little bit, and that's going to be rookie cornerback Alontae Taylor for my number 1 player to watch during preseason. Now, I was thinking about maybe putting Paulson Adebo on this list if I was making this list a few weeks before, but Paulson Adebo and Michael Thomas have been the clear-cut MVPs of training camp. And I think Adebo has done he's pretty much locked up the number 2 corner spot. I don't think there's any way he could possibly not get the number 2 spot, you know? So I don't think he'll get much action during the preseason, if at all. I think he'll play maybe a series or two against the Houston Texans, but we'll see what happens there. Obviously, I don't expect to see Lattimore or Matthew or Marcus May or any of the veteran players in the preseason, at least this first game. But I do think Alontae Taylor's going to get a lot of action this preseason because, kind of like with Chris Olave and Trevor Penning, they're rookies. And I do think Alontae Taylor, depending on how he does this preseason, could determine how many reps he gets. And, you know, obviously, if something happens to Lattimore or Alontae Taylor, or not Alontae Taylor, or Paulson Adebo, you know, if any injuries happen or, you know, whatever the case may be, you want to evaluate this rookie cornerback and also the fact that you use a second-round pick on this guy. So you think he's worth it, you think he's good. Apparently, Alontae Taylor is pretty versatile. At least he was in college, I believe. But the Saints are going to play him at cornerback, at least to start his career. And we'll see how it goes. I think Alontae Taylor is going to get a lot of action. He has very high upside. As we know, he went to college in Tennessee. He had a pretty good career there. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, the Saints secondary is pretty stacked with Lattimore, Adebo, Bradley Roby, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Those are just the corners. You know, you even got P.J. Williams. I was about to say Marcus Williams, but he's on the team anymore. Obviously, he's signed by the Baltimore Ravens. But you have Marcus May, acquired from the New York Jets. You got Tyrann Mathieu from the Chiefs. It's a pretty crowded secondary, so Alontae Taylor is really going to – I don't think he's going to get as much action, you know, as he would like to in this defense. But depending on how many preseason or how good he does in these preseason reps could determine how much those reps go up, you know, as much of a chance as he gets to play. So that's why that's my number 1 spot to watch, but also because the number 2 cornerback spot was a very interesting topic heading into training camp, but Adebo has just been so dominant during camp against everyone except Michael Thomas. I mean, you know, you can't really ask him to lock on Michael Thomas because Michael Thomas is that guy. He's just insane. So I don't blame Adebo for not shutting down Michael Thomas or anything like that. But Adebo has pretty much clinched the number 2 cornerback spot, so that's why it's not necessarily as a matter of who's going to win the number 2 spot. It's more so Alontae Taylor doing this to see how many reps he can get in a crowded secondary because I don't think he's going to get much regular season action. So that pretty much tops my top 5, or completes my top 5. Let me know what you guys think. If there's any players I could have left out, I could have done some honorable mentions, but I just didn't really think about that. Let me know what you guys think about the list. If there's any players I left off, like I said. And what do you guys think about this preseason? Who are you most excited to watch for this preseason? Comment that down below if you made it this far in the video. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Thank you guys for watching. Next time I see you guys will probably be the preseason postgame recap against the Houston Texans. And I might do some recaps in terms of the Saints joint practices with Green Bay coming up next week because the Saints will be having those joint practices leading up to the Week 2 preseason game against the Green Bay Packers. So that'll be great to see. But as for now, we got the Houston Texans coming up. So let me know what you guys think. Like I said, who you most excited for to see this preseason. And I will see you guys next time.